There is something deeply strange about a person who turns down a brand new Ferrari for one that is 50 years old, rusted in places, unreliable, and worth less on paper. Most people call them eccentric. Psychologists call them fascinating. Because the moment you start studying why certain people are obsessed with old Ferraris, you stop seeing a car preference and start seeing a window into how the human mind actually works. And what you find in that window changes the way you look at people entirely.
Let's start with a man named Marco. He is in his late 40s, successful, and could walk into any Ferrari dealership today and drive out in something with 700 horsepower, adaptive suspension, and a digital cockpit that practically thinks for you. He has looked at those cars. He has sat in them. And every single time, he walks away and goes back to his 1974 Ferrari Dino, which leaks a little oil, overheats in traffic, and requires a specific mechanic who learned his trade before most people reading this were born. His friends think he's being difficult. He thinks they are missing something fundamental about life. They are both partially right. What Marco is experiencing has a name in psychology. It is called identity-object fusion. This is the process by which a person begins to see an external object not just as something they own, but as a physical extension of who they are. The object stops being a possession and starts being a statement. And the older and more specific that object is, the stronger the psychological bond becomes. A new Ferrari is a product. An old Ferrari is a mirror. Here is what makes that mirror so powerful. Modern cars, modern phones, modern everything are designed to be replaced. They are engineered with a kind of built-in emotional disposability. You are supposed to upgrade. You are supposed to move on. People who gravitate toward old Ferraris have a psychological resistance to that cycle. They're not just buying a car. They are quietly rebelling against a culture that tells them nothing is worth keeping forever. And that rebellion is deeply connected to something psychologists call authenticity hunger. In a world flooded with digital surfaces, algorithmic experiences, and products designed by focus groups, the human brain is starving for something real, something imperfect, something that was touched by actual human hands, making actual human decisions, some of which were brilliant and some of which were mistakes. A 1960s Ferrari engine is full of those decisions. You can feel them when you drive it. You can hear them. And for a certain type of mind, that feeling is worth every inconvenience it brings. Now, let us talk about nostalgia, because most people misunderstand what it actually is. Nostalgia is not just about missing the past. Neuroscientists have shown that nostalgia activates the brain's reward circuitry in a way that is remarkably similar to physical warmth. It literally makes people feel safer, more connected, more certain of who they are. For people who prefer old Ferraris, many of them did not even grow up with these cars. They did not see a 308 GTS in their father's garage. What they are nostalgic for is a feeling they have constructed, an imagined past that represents clarity, craftsmanship, and meaning. They are not chasing a memory. They are chasing an ideal. This is where the psychology gets genuinely strange. Studies on what researchers call effort justification show that when a person works hard for something or maintains something difficult, their brain dramatically increases the perceived value of that thing. A new Ferrari requires nothing from you emotionally. You buy it, you service it at the official center, and when it breaks down, the warranty handles it. An old Ferrari demands your attention constantly. It pulls you in. It asks things of you. And every time you solve a problem, every time you track down a rare part or nurse it back to life, your brain rewards you with a hit of meaning that a trouble-free modern car simply cannot generate. That is not a flaw in their thinking. That is a feature. The people who prefer old Ferraris also tend to share a specific psychological profile. They score significantly higher in what personality researchers call need for uniqueness. This is not arrogance. It is a deep, sometimes unconscious drive to stand apart from the default narrative. When everyone around you is optimizing, upgrading, and chasing the newest version of everything, choosing something old and inconvenient and irreplaceable is one of the most quietly radical things you can do. It communicates a value system without saying a single word. And here is the part that most people never consider.
Scarcity does something extraordinary to the human brain. When the mind perceives that something is finite, genuinely irreplaceable, the emotional weight it assigns to that thing increases dramatically. This is not just about market value, it is neurological. A 1967 Ferrari 275 GTB will never be made again. Not one more. That fact alone triggers a response in the human brain that no amount of engineering excellence in a modern car can override. The brain is wired to protect rare things, and when you own one, some part of you feels like a guardian of something the world almost lost. Let us take a moment to talk about what psychologists call the endowment effect. Once you own something, your brain immediately begins to overvalue it relative to its objective worth. But with old Ferraris, something even more interesting happens. The overvaluation is not irrational, it is compounding. Every year the car ages, it becomes more historically significant. Every mile you put on it becomes part of a story. The patina, the small imperfections, the evidence of time, all of it adds layers of meaning that a new car will never have, because a new car is still trying to be perfect. An old Ferrari has already survived its imperfections. That is a completely different psychological relationship. There is also the community dimension, which is deeply underestimated. Old Ferrari owners exist inside one of the most psychologically rich social environments in the world.
These are people who gather not to show off, but to share knowledge, history, and a very specific kind of reverence. Psychologists know that belonging to a high identity group, a group where membership requires genuine knowledge and commitment rather than just money, creates a profound sense of self-worth. You cannot fake your way into this world. The community knows the cars too well. That barrier to entry is not frustrating to the people who prefer old Ferraris. It is exactly the point. Now, think about what all of this tells us about the broader human condition. We live in an age that is absolutely saturated with choice, speed, and novelty. Attention spans are shrinking. Patience is becoming rare. The ability to sit with something complex, to maintain it, to accept its imperfections, to love it not despite its age, but because of it, that is becoming a genuinely uncommon psychological trait. People who prefer old Ferraris are not living in the past. They are making a very specific argument about what the present is missing. They are choosing depth over convenience, story over specification, and meaning over optimization. They are the kind of people who read the whole book instead of the summary, who cook the long recipe instead of ordering in, who sit with something until they understand it rather than moving on the moment it becomes difficult. And when you look at the research, these people tend to report higher levels of life satisfaction. Not because old Ferraris make life easier. They absolutely do not. But because the psychological framework that makes someone prefer an old Ferrari also makes them better at finding meaning in the messy, imperfect, irreplaceable experience of being alive. Marco still drives his 1974 Dino. It overheated again last summer on a mountain road in northern Italy. He pulled over, waited, and watched the light change on the hills while the engine cooled down. He has told that story 100 times. Not as a complaint, as a gift. Maybe the people everyone calls eccentric are the only ones who have figured out what is actually worth holding on to.